And before we do anything else, we're going to do public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? No public comment? Oh, okay. Next will be roll call approval of the February 11th agenda. And roll call, all 5 members and our administrator are here. So I need approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes of regular meeting of January 14th. Who'd like to do either or first?
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Second over here. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Minutes. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Okay. Okay, old business, policy discussion, revisit policy on draft minutes. Who's that? Anybody? Kathy?
Well, I'll just reply to what Diane emailed to Arno, a couple of issues. And
I put a copy under, we all have a copy in your packet so you can look at the conversation.
Old business. And her question, Bill, was in June I spoke with you and advised on the draft minutes. At the time, you advised Kathy against posting draft minutes. This question of posting draft minutes continues to come up as an issue relevant to our regular board meeting minutes as well as our committee meeting minutes. The particular issue that has recently come up relates to the Brown Act requirements, which is Diane speaking, if I'm not mistaken, require us to make our board packets available to the public as soon as they are complete. Currently, our board packets include our draft minutes as the board approves meeting minutes at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Can you please advise us on best practice? And Bill, our legal counsel's reply was, the only requirement in the Brown Act concerning board packets is that if and only if someone has made a written request to receive a copy of the board packet, then you must send them a copy at the same time you send a packet to the board members. The written request must be renewed each year. If the request is made, you must send an entire copy of the packet, whether or not it includes draft minutes. But you must exclude any materials distributed to the board members for inspection in closed session. The other requirement for board packet is that there must be a copy available for inspection at the time and place where the meeting occurs. Although it is not required, many agencies post copies of minutes on their websites after those minutes have been finalized and approved by the board, but this is a courtesy, not a requirement. My standpoint is that I definitely think we should post minutes after they have been approved. Or, so it's easy access, but posted draft minutes is still strong.
Any other comments? Board members?
I think posting them after they're approved should be done.
Absolutely.
But the draft ones, no. There's too much chance of misinformation. Yeah, because we correct something. If a draft form to full form, I would want, misinformation is very hard to pull back and retract, particularly on electronic. Yeah. So.
And it's very clear, and I think in our legal counsel's reply that it is available with the board packet, and when the board packet becomes available to the board, then there is a copy here for it, which of course includes the draft minutes from the last board meeting.
Okay. So that's just discussion. Okay. Conflict of interest code amendment. We need to amend anything on that.
Something came from the board of supervisors literally today that I think may influence our consideration on this. In the past, the Form 700 Statement of Economic Interests were all maintained at the board of supervisors level. We had this discussion about who else to add, blah, blah, the administration of it. And actually, in thinking about it, when Peter was talking about contracts and most specifically in that people who make financial decisions, the more I thought about it, I mean, like Dawn, for instance, makes absolutely zero financial decisions for this district. I mean, no impact whatsoever. Anything that Dawn does is by contract that had been approved by the board. Whenever Dawn goes anywhere outside of the constraints of the contract, she comes to the board.
So correct that thing that she makes significant financial decisions, but they're all within the purview of the contract, what we contracted her to do.
Correct. I mean, yeah. So I mean, it's not like decisions and changes,
It's much in our budget. Yeah.
Right. But the thing is with the board of of Supervisors is going, it's on their agenda for February 26th, so obviously this will be decided very soon. They are likely to change the maintenance of that Form 700 to only include board members at Board of Supervisor level. And the district, whomever else you want to put on and have a Form 700 from, is just going to be maintained in the agency. So that could influence us putting people on, taking people off, without having a big rigmarole, you know. I think we should wait and see what they do if they approve this, and then we would vote at the next meeting.
I think it should be 5 of us and our administrator. So I think we should keep it simple.
Legal counsel.
And legal
The way it has been.
Yeah.
Let me clarify, it's not people who make the final decision that need to be on the conflict of interest or disclosure type stuff. It is people who influence the decisions. In other words, that the whole point, yes, if you take it literally that it's only people who actually sign checks, then it's just the board and the administrator, and that's why it's the Secretary of State or Registrar of Voters who wants those things from board members, because that's the elected official. But what the law actually talks about is the people who influence those decisions, the consultants. And so, for instance, yes, Dawn comes to board meetings for approvals of this project or that project or this thing. And it's on both, it's not just expenses, it's income as well, right? We want to go with this person or not this person. But she influences our decisions because generally, as a board, being only an hour a month and not operationally in charge of the function, we rely on the administrator to recommend things, but you know, when we generally go along with whatever the administrator says of administrative functions. And with events, we go along with whatever Dawn recommends on events. And with other types of things, we go along with our contractors and consultants on what they recommend. We're not, so it's a tiered level thing. It would be probably the least important cog in that wheel, not to demean ourselves, but for us, because we're not running day-to-day operations. So we decide we okay everything and we're responsible for everything. But we're probably at the bottom of that chain, and in the middle are the staff and the staff functions. Because they are recommending, oh, I think you should go with this guy rather than that guy. This guy, we need a vendor. I've looked, at it, and we've decided to go with this one, and we'll go along with it. And we have even bigger consultants and contractors. I mean, I would agree we don't want to get down to the level of who decides to buy light bulbs, but or when they need to be bought. We're going to talk about that as well. But we actually we're going to be spending close to $2 million over, what will be about an 18-month period. 6 of which have gone, 6 or 7 have gone by. That's an awful lot of money, and it isn't being spent by Dawn, and it isn't being spent by the administrator, and it is being spent on contractors and consultants, and that's where I think
So that's where your concern lies. It sounds like though what you're saying, Peter, is different than what the Board of Supervisors is going the opposite direction of what you're just suggesting right now. If they're talking about only having 700 forms filled out by the elected party at the Board of Supervisors level.
that's always what I thought it was. I never thought that what the law says is that if we do it, we maintain those forms. If we give any non-elected official or non-elected person, employee, or whatever you want to call it, to fill out one of those forms, it's for our own purposes. It has nothing to do with the Board of Supes, nothing to do with the Board of Electors, because it's not an elected office. It is for our own, we are supposedly the prudent masters of the public monies for this area, for our district, for our domain. And in managing it prudently, we should have disclosure statements on what the connections are between our contractors and the people.
But one thing you said, we are ultimately responsible. Okay?
Yes.
Everybody who advises us, contract with them, we still okay. It's not them that okay, we're the ones who okay. That's why we're the ones that need to do it, because we're the ones who it all ultimately stops at. I mean, we could, every time we do a project, get somebody to fill out Form 700, we'd have piles of Form 700s. If you read what the lawyer says at our legal counsel, he says you're just jamming up our administrator with extra paper we really don't need. I feel it should be the three areas, all 5 board members, the administrator, and the legal staff. That's my opinion. Anybody else?
And just to publicly clarify, Peter, you misspoke. The administrator does not have the ability to sign checks at all. So the only people that are signers on our checking account are my directors.
So, I guess I have a distinction that I think should be made between what we have to, the administrative burden of filling out an official form and maintaining it and changing it or any policy.
Trying to get people to
Related to that.
undo that is.
So there's that, but I think if what we're concerned about is when somebody, we contract as a district, we contract with somebody, and we have this for our employees as well, we have a conflict of interest statement that everybody signs and adheres to. That's a common practice in governance of an organization. That isn't an official finding of a form, but that states that we believe that conflict of interest should be expressed, should we have any financial material conflict, and it needs to be expressed and should be made public and advanced, So I think that we could go a different direction and address your concern related to somebody we're under contract with and even on staff. But I'm not sure it needs to be any additional administrative burden to the staff. That's my only concern, is that we don't go down a path where we're having lots more paperwork to manage as a small district.
We're only talking about a single sheet of paper filled out once a year or once every 2 years.
Somebody has to track it every 2 years. It's just adding in administrative stuff. I'm not sure does us any good. I don't know what problem we're solving by doing it.
Well, I wasn't trying to admit it, it's part of state law, and most other people do it. So,
No, they don't.
Not at this level.
I've heard a lot of boards
That's what
very-
legal counsel conducted as a response. That it isn't standard to do one way or another. We're meeting the minimum requirement right now, certainly. And there's no reason not to remove people, even when the list is required, rather than add. I think that was good, if I'm interpreting it correctly.
So depending, I mean, if they vote this way, I mean, do we want to take that resolution we had at the last meeting and implement that, including Dawn? Or
My suggestion right now would just be that we put it back on the agenda for
Next
next
month,
month
see
and
what
see what the
supervisors
board of
think.
supervisors
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
And incorporate board of supervisors with Bill's response to our questions and talk about it again.
Okay. All right, spending policy for committees.